Nacho is the most terrifying villain in TV history. Why? Not because he is aggressive, he is smart, or any other reason that might have popped up in your mind right now. There's a certain kind of person who enters darkness not because they were pushed, not because they were born into it, not because they had no other option, but because they made a choice. A conscious, deliberate, eyes-open choice. And then they spend the rest of their lives paying for it in ways they never fully anticipated. Nacho Varga is that kind of person. And what makes his story so unbearably human is that the choice he made, the one that set everything in motion, wasn't rooted in greed or cruelty or ambition. It was rooted in something most people would consider noble. It was rooted in love. Not the simple, uncomplicated kind. Not romance or passion or the love that makes life feel larger and brighter. The kind of love that keeps you awake at 3 in the morning running through worst-case scenarios. The kind that makes you check over your shoulder even when you're somewhere safe. The kind that turns protection into obsession, and obsession into sacrifice. The love a son has for his father when that son knows, deep in his bones, that the world he lives in would not hesitate to use that father against him. In Better Call Saul, the prequel story that expands the universe of Breaking Bad into something richer and more emotionally complex than most people expected, Nacho Varga occupies a specific kind of space. He's not the central character, he doesn't drive the primary narrative, he doesn't have the most screen time or the most dramatic arc in the conventional sense. But there is an argument to be made, a strong one, that he is the moral and emotional core of everything the show is trying to say. About consequence, about loyalty, about the cost of the choices we make when we think we can manage the fallout. And because Nacho never stopped being aware of the fallout, that awareness was both his defining characteristic and his prison. He is, in almost every scene he inhabits, the most alert person in the room. Not the loudest, not the most powerful, not the most feared, but the most awake. You can see it in the way he carries himself, always slightly coiled, never fully at ease, even in moments that should feel relaxed. You can see it in his eyes, which are constantly doing the kind of quiet math that most people in his world don't bother with. He's calculating distances, measuring temperaments, identifying exits, assessing threats. He's doing all of this continuously, automatically, the way other people breathe, because in the world he chose to enter, the moment you stop doing that math is often the moment everything falls apart. And the thing that makes this so poignant, so genuinely painful to watch, is that all of that vigilance and intelligence and careful, methodical thinking never gets him to safety. It just keeps him alive long enough to suffer more. Every smart move he makes creates a new complication. Every problem he solves opens a door to a worse problem. He is, in the most literal sense, a man running on a treadmill in a burning building, working harder and harder just to stay exactly where he is, while the heat closes in around him. But let's go back to the beginning. Because Nacho's story doesn't start with the cartel. It starts with a choice. And understanding that choice means understanding the man. Nacho Varga was not born into the criminal world the way so many of the characters around him were. He didn't grow up in a household where violence was normal, where crime was the family trade, where the progression from childhood to cartel was almost predetermined by geography and circumstance. He had something that many of the people around him didn't. He had a father who showed him another way. A man named Manuel Varga, who built his life the right way, slowly and honestly, with his hands and his integrity, and a quiet, unshakable belief that if you treat the world with decency, the world will eventually return the favor. Manuel ran a small upholstery business, nothing glamorous, nothing that would make anyone wealthy in a dramatic, life-changing way, but it was real. It was his. It was built based on something solid, and watching his father operate in that world, the legitimate world, and the world of honest work and fair dealing and simple dignity, must have shown Nacho's exactly what the alternative looked like. So what happened? Why did he choose the other path? The show doesn't give us a clean answer, and that's deliberate. Because the truth is probably that there wasn't one single dramatic moment, one clear breaking point, one villain who lured him away, or one catastrophe that left him no choice. The truth is probably more mundane and more universal than that. Maybe he wanted more. Maybe he looked at the slow, modest life his father had built and felt impatient with it, felt the pull of something faster, something bigger, something that would let him feel powerful in a world that otherwise ignored people like him. Maybe he told himself it was temporary. Maybe he genuinely believed he was smart enough to take what the criminal world had to offer without being taken by it. Maybe he thought he understood the game well enough to play it on his own terms. That's the lie the game tells everyone who enters it. And almost everyone believes it, at least at first. Because here's what the cartel world actually is. Beneath all the money and the power and the terrifying glamour that surrounds it from the outside, It is a system specifically designed to make exit impossible. It is built on the understanding that once you know enough, once you've seen enough, once you're useful enough, you become property. Not a partner, not an employee. Property. And property doesn't negotiate its own freedom. Property doesn't walk away when it decides it's had enough. Property stays until it's discarded or destroyed, and it has no say in which of those two things happens or when. Nacho figured this out earlier than most, but by the time the full weight of that understanding settled on him, the door behind him had already been locked. What separates Nacho from nearly everyone else in his world, and what makes him so compelling to watch, is that he never stopped feeling this. He never went numb. He never found the place inside himself where he could stop caring, stop calculating the human cost, stop looking at the violence and cruelty around him with something other than barely concealed revulsion. He adapted to his environment with extraordinary skill, but he never became it. And in a show full of characters who are defined by their moral compromise, that distinction matters enormously. Look at Hector Salamanca. Hector is, in many ways, Nacho's opposite. Where Nacho is controlled and internal, Hector is explosive and external. Where Nacho treats violence as a last resort, a necessary evil to be minimized, Hector treats it as a first language. He doesn't just accept the brutality of the cartel world, he is the brutality of the cartel world, distilled into one aging, wheelchair-bound, bell-ringing figure. For Hector, power expressed through fear and pain and domination is not a means to an end. It is the end. It's what he lives for. The suffering of others is, for him, deeply satisfying in a way that goes beyond strategy or business. It's personal. It's pleasurable. Every time Hector loses control, every time the violence escalates, every time someone is hurt or humiliated or broken, the camera finds Nacho's face. And what you see there is not excitement or approval or even simple indifference. What you see is a man absorbing another layer of poison into a system that is already struggling to process all the poison that's been given. You see someone doing the math again, quietly, calculating what this means, who gets hurt next, how he managed the fallout, how he keeps the one person he cares about protected from the chaos spreading it outward from this moment. That person is always his father. Nacho Varga is not in the show very much. He doesn't need to be. His presence, even when he's absent, shapes everything Nacho does. Because Nacho carries his father with him everywhere, not as a comfort, but as a responsibility, as a vulnerability, as the one soft spot in an otherwise hardened exterior, the one place where the cartel could reach in and destroy him completely without laying a hand on him. Their relationship is rendered with a kind of quiet devastation that the show handles better than almost any other dynamic in its long run. Manuel sees his son and refuses to give up on him. He doesn't fully understand what Nacho has become, or perhaps more accurately, he understands it, but chooses to believe it's not permanent, that there is still the version of his son that can be recovered, that the decent, intelligent young man he raised is still in there somewhere, buried under bad decisions and bad company, waiting to be reached. And so he keeps reaching. He keeps offering the open door, the clean start, the honest life, the second chance. And Nacho keeps having to refuse it, not because he doesn't want it. That's what makes every single one of those scenes so quietly heartbreaking. He wants it desperately. Every time his father lays out the possibility of a different life, you can see something flicker in Nacho's eyes, something that looks like hunger, like longing, like grief for a future he can already see slipping out of reach. But he can't reach for it because reaching for it would expose his father to the very danger he's been spending every waking moment trying to shield him from. If Nacho runs, the cartel goes to Manuel. If Nacho disappears, the cartel goes to Manuel. If Nacho shows any sign of disloyalty, any sign of weakness, any indication that there's something more important to him than the work, the cartel goes to Manuel. His father is not just a motivation. His father is a hostage, even if Manuel himself doesn't know it. And so Nacho stays, and performs, and lies, and endures. The decision to tamper with Hector's medication is, in retrospect, the moment where the full dimensions of Nacho's tragedy snap into focus. Because it's such a Nacho move. It's not impulsive, it's not emotional, it's carefully considered, quietly executed, and designed to achieve the maximum result with the minimum visible footprint. He doesn't want to kill Hector in a blaze of confrontation. He wants Hector to simply, medically, cease to be a threat. Clean, subtle, deniable. The kind of solution that only someone with Nacho's particular combination of intelligence, desperation, and discipline would even think to attempt. And for a moment, just a moment, the world seems to respond to his cleverness. Hector collapses. The immediate threat recedes. Nacho breathes slightly, for the first time in what feels like forever. But the universe of Better Call Saul is not a universe that rewards cleverness. It is a universe that punishes it, specifically because cleverness, when exercised by someone without real power, is perceived as a threat by the people who do have power. And the person with the most real, most comprehensive, most quietly terrifying power in this world has been watching Nacho the entire time. Gustavo Fring. There are villains in television who are frightening because of their capacity for violence. There are villains who are frightening because of their unpredictability. And then there are villains who are frightening because of their patience, their intelligence, their absolute inhuman control over every variable in their environment. Gus is the third kind. He doesn't need to threaten loudly, because he doesn't need to threaten at all. His power doesn't come from the volume of his voice or the speed of his anger. It comes from the fact that he knows things before other people know them, that he sees moves coming multiple steps in advance, that he has already accounted for the possibility of your betrayal and built his response to it before you even fully committed to the act. When Gus discovers what Nacho did to Hector, the audience braces for the kind of explosive, violent response that Hector would have delivered. But Gus doesn't deliver that. He delivers something far worse. He smiles in this particular thin, controlled way, and he makes Nacho an offer that isn't really an offer at all. He makes Nacho a tool. He takes the leverage that the Salamancas had been exercising over Nacho through brute fear and replaces it with something more sophisticated and more inescapable. He makes Nacho his inside man, his agent within the Salamanca organization, his eyes and ears in a place he cannot otherwise reach. And to ensure Nacho's cooperation, he does the single thing that guarantees it above all others. He makes Manuel's safety contingent on Nacho's performance, and with that, Nacho's trap doesn't just close tighter. It becomes a different trap entirely, one with no visible walls and no obvious lock, which makes it infinitely harder to escape. Now Nacho is living a double life that would exhaust and destroy most people within weeks. He is performing loyalty to the Salamancas, while feeding information to Gus. He is maintaining the appearance of a man fully committed to his cartel family while secretly serving their greatest enemy. Every conversation is a tightrope. Every interaction is a performance. Every day is another accumulation of lies that he has to keep perfectly organized in his mind, because one contradiction and one moment where the two stories don't align could unravel everything known instantly. And then Lalo Salamanca arrives, and the difficulty of Nacho's performance increases by an order of magnitude that is almost impossible to overstate. Lalo is different from the other Salamancas in a way that makes him uniquely dangerous to someone in Nacho's position. Hector was terrifying because of his violence, but Hector's violence was, in a strange way, predictable. You could see it coming. You could brace for it. Lalo is terrifying because of his mind. He is observant in the way that only people who have survived for a long time in extremely dangerous environments are observant. He notices things, small things, inconsistencies in tone, micro-expressions that don't quite fit the story being told, the fraction of a second delay before an answer that should come immediately. He catalogs all of it, files it away, and retrieves it at the moment when it's most damaging, and Nacho has to lie to this man, every single day. Has to look him in the eye and maintain a perfect, seamless performance of loyalty and trust and uncomplicated brotherhood, while knowing that discovery means not just his own death, but the destruction of the one thing he has been fighting to protect since the very beginning. The psychological weight of what Nacho carries during this period is almost incomprehensible. Imagine for a moment, truly trying to imagine, what it would feel like to live every day knowing that one wrong word, one slightly off expression, one moment where the mask slips even fractionally, ends everything, not just for you, but for someone you love. Imagine maintaining that level of vigilance, that degree of performance, day after day, week after week, month after month, with no end in sight and no one in the world you can actually talk to honestly about what you're going through. No ally, no confidant, no safe space, just the performance. Endlessly, until it ends you. And yet Nacho holds together, not because he is superhuman, not because he has found some secret reservoir of strength that other people lack, but because the alternative of failing, the alternative of his father being hurt, is simply not something he can permit himself to consider. His father is the wall he keeps running into every time he thinks about giving up. His father is the reason he gets up every morning and puts the mask back on and walks back into the fire. But even the strongest walls develop cracks over time. As the series moves towards its conclusion, You can see the exhaustion accumulating in Nacho, the moments of stillness where you can almost see him recalculating, reassessing, trying to find an angle that doesn't exist. He's been carrying this weight for so long, through so many escalating complications, and the horizon keeps getting darker instead of lighter. Every plan he forms runs up against the same fundamental problem. The cartel doesn't forget. Gus doesn't forgive. And the deeper you go into this world, the more of it you carry with you, and the harder it becomes to imagine existing outside of it. There are moments in his final arc where Nacho allows himself to dream, quietly, of simply disappearing, of going somewhere no one knows his name, of calling his father and hearing his voice without calculating what every word might cost. Those moments are brief, and they are heartbreaking precisely because of how brief they are, because Nacho knows better than anyone that they're fantasies. The cartel has a very long memory and an even longer reach. And Gus, who knows everything, would never allow one of his assets to simply walk away into obscurity. The ending, when it finally comes, is not a surprise to Nacho. That's perhaps the most devastating thing about it. He doesn't spend his final hours in denial or bargaining or desperate last-minute scheming. He arrives at his ending with a kind of clear-eyed acceptance that is both deeply sad and genuinely moving. He has done the math for the last time, and the answer is the same one it's been pointing toward for a long time. He is not going to walk out of this. There is no scenario in which Ignacio Varga survives what's coming. The question is not whether he lives. The question is how he ends. And that is the one thing, the very last thing, that no one else gets to decide for him. What Nacho does in his final moments is something that the show earns completely, something that feels genuinely true to everything we've understood about this character from the very beginning. He doesn't beg. He doesn't perform fear for the people who would enjoy seeing it. He doesn't try to cut one last deal, one last bargain, one last clever arrangement that might buy him a few more hours. He speaks. He tells the truth. Not all of it, not in a way that puts his father in danger, but his truth. The parts that belong to him, the account of his own actions and his own choices and his own reasons. He gives it freely on his own terms. In doing so, he takes back the one thing that the cartel, that Gus, that the Salamancas, that every force that has controlled and manipulated and used him for years could never quite manage to fully possess. His agency, his voice, his self. He looks at the man who has owned him, who has held the leash and pulled it and used it to make Nacho perform like an animal at every critical moment, and for the first time in their entire relationship, Nacho is not performing. He's just standing there in his own skin, saying what he actually thinks, without calculation or strategy or the constant background hum of survival math that has defined his existence for so long. They can kill him, they are going to kill him, but they cannot break him, and more importantly, they cannot reach his father, because Nacho has made sure of that too, right up until the very end. It is not a victory in the conventional sense. There is no triumph here, no last-minute escape, no redemption arc that ends with him somewhere quiet and safe, having finally made peace with his father in a way that doesn't cost either of them anything more. It is a smaller, harder, more real kind of victory. The victory of dying as yourself, in a world that spent years trying to turn you into something else. The victory of protecting the person you love, even when the mechanism of protection is your own death. The victory of taking the last choice available to you and making it count. Nacho Varga's story is, at its heart, a story about what happens when a genuinely intelligent and perceptive person makes a mistake they can't undo, and then spends the rest of their life trying to make sure that mistake doesn't destroy the people they love. It's a story about the kind of love that doesn't look like love from the outside, that looks like cold calculation and careful deception and relentless endurance, but that is, underneath all of that, just a son trying desperately to keep his father safe in a world that has become far more dangerous than either of them ever imagined. He didn't get the ending he deserved. He didn't get the quiet life, the honest work, the long evenings with his father and the small business they might have built together. He didn't get the chance to say, out loud and without consequence, everything he probably wanted to say. But he got something. He got to be the architect of his own ending. He got to protect his father one final time. He got to look his enemies in the eye and refuse to give them the satisfaction of seeing him broken. And in a world as dark and unforgiving as the one Better Call Saul inhabits, that is not nothing. That is, in fact, everything. So if there's a reason to sit with Nacho Varga's story after the credits roll, if there's a reason to let it stay with you longer than just the runtime of the show, it's this. He reminds us that the most important relationships in our lives, the ones that shape us and anchor us and ultimately define what we're willing to sacrifice, deserve more than silence and delay. Nacho spent everything he had trying to protect his father from a distance through deception and sacrifice, and ultimately through the act of dying on his own terms. What he could never give his father was himself, fully and honestly, without the weight of all the things he was hiding. If your father's still here, still reachable, still someone you can call or visit or sit with, don't wait. Don't let the busyness of life, the complicated history, the things left unsaid become the architecture of a regret you carry forever. Nacho ran out of time trying to protect someone he never got to fully love in the open. You still have time. Use it.